This video is sponsored by Paranormal Activity books. Filled with blood-stained research reports, handwritten notes, and more than 200 professional artworks, Paranormal Activity books are releasing 3 SCP art books this winter filled with the most popular and most interesting SCP articles. To get your hands on these books, head over to the crowdfunding campaign. Backers will receive all 3 books in an exclusive slipcase wrapped in dust covers that support augmented reality. Backers also have the opportunity to be rewarded with an SCP Objects Calendar, Foundation Interior Photo Pack, your own employee card, your own Level 4 access card, as well as pins, stickers, bracelets, and more. As an added bonus, 30 random backers will receive a limited edition vinyl figure of SCP. These are a treasure to all SCP fans, so let's go and make it possible to publish the best SCP books we've ever seen. Link in the description. Good day everyone and welcome back. Today the start of a new monthly series focusing on Dr. Bright. Every month we will take a look at his restrictions and a few bonus ones submitted by the channel supporters. This video has been authorised by the following council members and administration staff, and let's begin. Rule number 1. Dr. Bright is not allowed to feed anything with peanut butter to Kane. Rule number 2. Telling new researchers that you can tame SCP-682 with a rolled up newspaper and a tummy rub is right out. Rule number 3. No longer allowed to challenge Abel to unwinnable games like tic-tac-toe. It was 3 weeks before Abel conceded a draw. Rule number 4. SCP-018 is not to be taunted. Rule number 5. Giving SCP-113 to Diogenes is just plain pointless. Rule number 6. Attempting to disprove 343 to 343 is a horrible idea. Agents are still studying the resulting paperweight, supposedly so heavy that 343 should not be able to lift it. Rule number 7. While it is true that no one expects the SCP Inquisition, that is only because there is no such thing. Rule number 8. Dr. Bright is not king of anywhere, or queen. Rule number 9. SCP-963 is not to be used for recreational or procreational purposes. Rule number 10. Although it is entirely possible to use SCPs currently under the control of the Foundation to create tentacle monsters, no, not even if Dr. Palmer asks nicely. Rule number 11. There is no markets for SCP brand pornography. No, not even in Germany. Rule number 12. Should not replace the buckshot in Dr. Clef's shotgun shells with any of the following: birdseed, confetti, cake sprinkles, sawdust, or glitter. Rule number 13. The Better Business Bureau is not the correct agency for dealing with containment failures from horrible eldritch artifacts sold by Marshall, Carter and Dark. Rule number 14. Victims of SCP-217 are not toys, nor are they to be used as props at a steampunk convention. Rule number 15. Dr. Bright is not allowed to bargain with personnel for their souls, not even if he can get them a good deal. Rule number 16. Don't let Dr. Bright get a sample of SCP-379. Let my laptop be the last victim. Rule number 17. Not allowed to go off my medication. Rule number 18. May not use any form of the word accident as an excuse. Rule number 19. Violate the dress code even on casual Fridays. No matter how many times you say please, Dr. Bright, we won't put any of the hats you've been asking about into the dress code. Rule number 20. If an SCP file says never to do something, it is not because we want to control your mind. No, it's not, and Dr. Bright may not edit this document. Rule 21. SCP-437 is not to be handed out as weaponry to unsuspecting new researchers. Rule number 22. Not even for recreational use. Rule number 23. Not allowed to send Nigerian-esque spam email to the Church of the Broken God. Rule number 24. Not allowed to lead a mobile task force just at all. In fact, just stay 500 feet away from any mobile task force at all times. Rule number 25. Not allowed to end reports with lyrics from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. but is allowed to end with lyrics from the safety dance. The interpretive dance routine, however, is forbidden until he gets lessons for the foreseeable future. Rule number 26. Dr. Bright is not allowed anywhere near a Renaissance festival, especially not with D-class in garb. Rule number 27. SCP-096 is not a joy buzzer. Rule number 28. If a mind-controlling SCP is discovered, it is to be turned over to the proper authorities. It is not to be used to advance himself or others higher in the Foundation. Rule number 29. Dr. Bright is not a superhero of any sort, head of public relations, in charge of orientation for new staff, a doctor of psychology, made out of bacon, in possession of an IQ over 300, head of SCP review, or a member of maintenance staff. Sorry boys, Dr. Bright is a member of Site Command. It's usually best not to ask why. It's 05 Command you're thinking of. Rule number 30. There is no ethics committee. And even if there was, does anyone believe Dr. Bright would be on it, as anything other than a what not to do? Rule number 31. No longer allowed to make up Jodies for morning calisthenics. Yes, this includes the Mickey Mouse Club song. Rule number 32. Dr. Bright is not allowed to apply SCP-963 to any major political figures. Rule number 33. Dr. Bright is not from an alternate timeline. Dr. Bright cannot issue orders to preserve the timeline, or to corrupt the timeline, or to screw with those history nerds. Rule number 34. Dr. Bright is not allowed to challenge anyone to a duel and then give them SCP-572. Rule number 35. Dr. Bright is not allowed near SCP-5555-J in any way or in any excuse. Remember what the miniature version did to Dr. Rule number 36. Dr. Clef and Dr. Bright are not allowed to interact without the presence of a responsible administrator. Dr. Kondraki does not count as a responsible administrator, nor does Agent Strongnikov, or Dr. Mann. In fact, let's just keep the two of them apart. Period. Rule number 37. Chainsaws are not the solution to every question, nor is more chainsaws, or chainsaw cannons. Except for that one time, and yes, that was awesome. Rule number 38. SCP speed dating never happened. Anyone who claims to remember such an event should report to Site Command for administration of a Class A amnesiac. Rule number 39. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use any SCP to alter or affect the outcomes of any reality-based television shows, including, but not limited to, Survivor, Big Brother, Hell's Kitchen, American Idol, or any dating show on VH1. Not even if Dr. Wrights asks nicely. Rule number 40. Dr. Bright is not allowed to administer spankings to Dr. Wrights as punishment, as it only causes more rules to be broken. No, it doesn't matter that they are both consenting adults, no matter how many either of them argue otherwise. Dr. Wright is not allowed to spank the monkey, nor is she allowed to shock the monkey, or anything else relating to the monkey. Rule number 41. SCP-082 is not to be given song requests, especially not Like a Virgin. Rule number 42. Accidentally spilling green gelatin on a dead body in the presence of the O5 was funny exactly once, and the smell of excrement exuding from O5-2's khakis spoiled the moment. Rule number 43. Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to utter the phrase more than 1,000 babies in the presence of any SCP personnel. Rule number 44. Nothing in the Foundation is rated over 9,000. Rule number 45. Stop posting classified information on 4chan. Rule number 46. No using SCP-705 for personal gain, or to plant monitoring equipment, and absolutely no giving them tons of extra Play-Doh just to see what they can make. That mecha was damned annoying. Rule number 47. If it involves doing something wrong, it isn't right. Rule number 48. If it involves something right, you did it wrong. Rule number 49. If Dr. Bright has to ask, it's above his clearance level. If it's above Bright's security clearance, run. Rule number 50. Dr. Bright is not allowed to declare war on any country, thing, or person. Bonus rules. Rule number 1. Dr. Bright is not allowed within 15 metres of 173's containment chamber, not after the banana peel incident. Rule number 2. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use SCP-035 on instances of himself to see who would win in a battle of wills. Rule number 3. Dr. Bright is not allowed to modify SCP-2639-C to run any of the games from the Doom series in order to summon the Doom Guy. Rule number 4. Dr. Bright is not allowed to utilise his expenditure for microtransactions in video games. Rule number 5. Dr. Bright is not allowed unsupervised access to SCP-079. We've managed to undo what you did, but 079 has requested to consult a therapist. Rule number 6. Dr. Bright is not allowed to request Jack Bright from SCP-294 to try and find a great female body. Liquid bodies. Let's not allow that again. Rule number 7. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use SCP-956 as a piñata at any of the staff parties. This also applies to any copies it produces. Rule number 8. Dr. Bright is not allowed to dress up like SCP-053 in order to calm down SCP-682. If anything, you just made him angrier. Rule number 9. Dr. Bright is not allowed to introduce himself to new D-Class as Big Boss. Rule number 10. Dr. Bright is not allowed to install video games on SCP-079. Rule number 11. Dr. Bright is not allowed to create SCP-related media sites. The cost of censoring all accurate documents and replacing them with fake ones would be in the millions. Rule number 12. Dr. Bright is not allowed to yeet or yote SCP-432 off a cliff. In fact, no dropping any SCP items off of cliffs, buildings, or any high-rise structures. Rule number 13. Dr. Bright is not allowed to keep SCP-939 instances as pets. Rule number 14. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use Foundation resources to locate the Lamb source. Rule number 15. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use Foundation resources to create his own Godzilla. Rule number 16. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use SCP-2521 to dispose of annoying SCPs or staff. Rule number 17. Dr. Bright is not allowed to teach SCPs well-known phrases from various movies. Agent Woods remarks he did get a chuckle out of the 076 one though, before his sternum was broken from the Sparta kick. Rule number 18. Dr. Bright is not allowed to use SCP-2137 to create sick-ass mixtapes. Rule number 19. Dr. Bright is not allowed to play Marco Polo with SCP-939. Rule number 20. Dr. Bright is not allowed access to SCP-055. Just because we can't remember what you did with it, doesn't mean you should keep seeing... Wait, what are we talking about again? Rule number 21. Dr. Bright is not allowed to sell SCP-963 on the Antiques Roadshow, Pawn Stars, or anything similar. I know selling your soul is never a good thing, but this is just ridiculous. Rule number 22. Dr. Bright is not allowed to claim he is the Council, nor can he execute Order 682. Rule number 23. Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to hold flute lessons at Biosite 59. And no, the piccolo does count as a flute. Rule number 24. Dr. Bright is not allowed to sneak a picture of SCP-096 into the D-Class's playing cards. Horrible mess. And rule number 25. Dr. Bright is not allowed to conduct research into the energy output of the Sun in hopes of triggering the SCP-001 event because Akira was pretty cool. And that concludes this entry, the first of many more Dr. Bright videos to come. I hope you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe if you did. If you want to put forward your own restrictions, consider supporting me on Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Next time, the SCP summarised for this month. That one will be out very soon. Be sure to follow all the social media outlets for video updates, check out the SCP Illustrated shop for posters and prints. All the links can be found below. And if you can't wait days and weeks for new material, then consider joining the Patreon or becoming a channel member. You get early video access, submit Dr. Bright restrictions, get Discord access, seal the sketches early, request your own sketches, get your name in all the videos, and so much more. And thank you to Generals Alert, Rick Trexon, Sam B, JT Walker, Horizons, Jax Merrick, Alexander, Number of the East, Rome, Arbiter Soul, Pepperfish, Fallen Angel, and Dr. Soup. Big thanks to the council members Kibara, Len Hawks, Captain Core, Hunter Killer, Arctoast, Arctos, Shadow, Romulus the Commissar, Kilo, Cat Clone, and Nightmare. And huge thanks to the administrators Kimana, Viger, Gilbert, Panzer, Brian, and Wunderschnell. Thank you all for watching, I will see you all soon, and take care.